Imagine a place where the air is thick with the sweet smell of honeysuckle and the buzz of cicadas is the loudest sound for miles. This is Elbert County, Georgia, the self-proclaimed granite capital of the world, a quiet corner of the American South where tradition is as solid as the rock beneath the soil. But one summer afternoon, a shadow falls over this peaceful town, a shadow that will stretch across decades and ignite one of the most baffling mysteries of modern times. It's a story that starts with a handshake and ends with a pile of dust, and it suggests that maybe, just maybe, we are not being told the whole truth about who pulls the strings in our world. Have we been lied to all along? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment below with where you're watching from and what time it is. It's always fascinating to see how far these stories travel. Now, let's peel back the layers of this enigma together, and feel free to share your own theories as we go. The story begins in June 1979. A man walks into the offices of the Elberton Granite Finishing Company. He's tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit that seems out of place in the Georgia heat, and he speaks with a calm, articulate authority that commands attention. He introduces himself to the company president, Joe Fendley, with a name that feels both formal and strangely hollow, R.C. Christian. He claims to represent a small group of loyal Americans living outside of Georgia who have been planning a very special project for over 20 years. Fendley, a practical businessman used to negotiating headstones and building facades, listens with professional courtesy, assuming this will be another standard, albeit large commission. He couldn't be more wrong. Christian unfolds his plans, and the air in the room shifts. This isn't about a statue or a memorial. He wants to build an instrument, a massive, astronomically aligned granite monument that will function as a compass, a calendar, and a clock. He specifies 4 colossal slabs, each weighing over 20 tons, to be arranged in a paddle wheel formation around a central pillar. A 25,000-pound capstone is to be placed on top. He details precise requirements. A hole through the center stone must be aligned with the North Star. A slot cut into another slab must frame the rising sun at the solstices and equinoxes. An aperture in the capstone must be designed to cast a beam of sunlight onto the central column at noon each day, indicating the day of the year. Fendley is stunned. The sheer scale and complexity are breathtaking, almost pharaonic. This is a project that would test the limits of his company's technology and expertise. The first ironic twist unfolds as Fendley, trying to dissuade this stranger with an astronomical price quote, only sees Christian nod in agreement, unfazed. The budget, it seems, is no object. But there's a catch. A detail that transforms this from a strange architectural request into a full-blown mystery. Christian insists that his true identity and that of the group he represents must remain a secret forever. He's using a pseudonym. Experts still argue whether R.C. Christian was a deliberate nod to Christian Rosencreuz, the legendary founder of the Rosicrucians, a secretive philosophical society. The name itself is a clue, a taunt left in plain sight. To secure the deal, the banks require a real name. In a moment of high-stakes trust, Christian agrees to reveal his identity to one person, the bank president Wyatt Martin, under the condition that Martin sign a confidentiality agreement to never disclose it and to destroy all records after the project is complete. Martin agrees, and later describes Christian as a thoughtful, sincere man, not a crank. The funds arrive, the contracts are signed, and the man known as R.C. Christian corresponds with Fendley for a time before vanishing as mysteriously as he appeared, leaving behind only his bizarre, celestial blueprint. The land is purchased, a 5-acre plot on the highest hill in the county, and the quarrying begins. The town, once sleepy and predictable, is now the custodian of a secret it doesn't understand, building a monument for an unknown patron with an unknowable purpose. And carved into the faces of those giant stones is a set of instructions that will soon make this local curiosity an object of international obsession and fear. The massive granite slabs are now being painstakingly shaped, not just with astronomical precision, but with a message intended for all of humanity. This is where the mystery deepens, where a strange architectural project in rural Georgia blossoms into a global conspiracy. R.C. Christian didn't just want to build a celestial clock, he wanted to etch a new decalogue into stone, a set of 10 commandments for a new era. And unlike the ancient rules handed down on a mountain, these were to be written in 8 of the world's most prominent languages: English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian. The selection itself, a linguistic snapshot of the late Cold War era, suggests a global ambition that is both audacious and unsettling. It's a message meant for survivors, a blueprint for rebuilding civilization, or, depending on your perspective, a manifesto for a coup against humanity itself.
The first commandment is the one that stops everyone in their tracks. The one that has fueled nightmares and documentaries for 40 years. It reads, "Maintain humanity under 500 million in a perpetual balance with nature." Let that sink in. At the time of the monument's construction in 1980, the world population was over 4.4 billion. Today, it's over 8 billion. The commandment doesn't just suggest a goal, it implies a culling of staggering proportions. Over 90% of the world's population would have to vanish to meet this directive. Is this a practical guide for the few survivors of a nuclear holocaust or a global pandemic? A sensible instruction to prevent the mistakes that led to the apocalypse? Or is it the openly stated goal of a shadowy elite? A chilling promise of a great reset on a genocidal scale? This single sentence launches the guidestones from quirky roadside attraction to the perceived ground zero of a plot against the world. The subsequent rules do little to calm the nerves. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. On the surface, it sounds like modern genetic counseling, but placed next to the 500 million person limit, it takes on the sinister gleam of eugenics. A state-sponsored program to decide who is fit to have children. Then comes the call to unite humanity with a living new language, and to rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. For many, this is a direct assault on the very pillars of human culture: language, religion, and heritage. It sounds less like a path to unity and more like a recipe for a homogenized, sterile world, a beige monoculture ruled by a cold, faceless logic. The dream of a new Esperanto and an age of reason sounds to some like the Tower of Babel being rebuilt by committee. Here comes the first strange twist. After these deeply controversial, globally focused directives, the tone shifts. The monument advocates, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. This creates a bizarre contradiction. How can you have sovereign nations ruling internally when a world court has the final say and humanity is united under one language with faith and tradition subjugated? Experts still argue whether this reflects a profound, nuanced political philosophy or is simply the muddled thinking of a committee. The final commandments sound almost libertarian. Avoid petty laws and useless officials, and balance personal rights with social duties. It's an ironic mix of globalist ambition and small government rhetoric, a puzzle that refuses to fit neatly into any single ideology. To add another layer of strangeness, a smaller, ground-level tablet was placed a few feet to the west of the main structure. It identifies the sponsors only as a small group of Americans who seek the age of reason. It lists the languages, the physical data of the monument, and the astronomical features. It also contains the pseudonym R.C. Christian. But here's the detail that keeps investigators up at night. The tablet also mentions a time capsule buried 6 feet below, with a space for the date of its burial and the date it is to be opened left ominously blank. For 40 years, that empty space has been a silent invitation, a promise of more secrets waiting just beneath the surface. The stones are up, the message is carved, and the world begins to take notice. The quiet hill in Elbert County is no longer just a hill. It's a stage.
With the Georgia Guidestones now standing against the sky, their cryptic message exposed to the world, the monument's second life begins. It ceases to be a mere granite structure and morphs into a sacred text, a pilgrimage site for a new kind of faithful. It's not just curious tourists who make the trek down the winding country road. It's a global congregation of seekers, skeptics, and conspiracy theorists, each bringing their own interpretation to the stones. The site becomes a canvas onto which the fears and hopes of a generation are projected. For some, it is a beacon of enlightenment, a rational plan for humanity's survival. For others, it's a satanic altar, the 10 Commandments of the Antichrist. The quiet hill in Elbert County has become a battleground for the soul of the future. This is where the whispers about secret societies grow into a roar. The name R.C. Christian, that potential callback to Christian Rosencreuz, is no longer just a historical footnote. It's now seen as Exhibit A in the case for Rosicrucian involvement. This ancient semi-mythical order, said to possess esoteric knowledge passed down through the centuries, fits the profile of a group with the long-term vision and discrete resources to commission such a project. Then there are the Freemasons. The monument's precise geometric layout, its astronomical alignments, and its emphasis on reason and a new world order resonate deeply with Masonic symbolism and philosophy. Local Masons were even involved in the construction, a fact that theorists seize upon as proof of a deeper connection. The debate rages. Are the Guidestones a Masonic trestle board, laying out the plans for a global great work? The story takes another ironic turn. While many believe the monument was built by a powerful secret society, it inadvertently creates its own fringe community. Annual gatherings begin to take place at the site, drawing a diverse crowd of New Agers, pagans, neo-pagan druids, who see the structure as a modern Stonehenge, and various self-proclaimed prophets. They perform ceremonies at the solstices, leaving offerings and tracing the shadows cast by the sun through the gnomon hole. The monument, intended to usher in an age of reason, becomes a central hub for faith-based rituals, a testament to humanity's enduring need for mysticism, directly contradicting the very principles carved into its surface. Then comes a truly strange and physical mystery. In the dead of night, sometime in late 2008, an unknown person or group defaces the monument. They spray paint slogans like "Death to the New World Order" and "Jesus will beat you Satanists." But they do something else, something far more perplexing. They apply polyurethane glue and then surgically remove a corner piece from the English language slab. It's not crude vandalism, it's a deliberate act. The chunk of granite vanishes without a trace. Law enforcement is baffled. Was it a simple act of souvenir taking by an overzealous visitor? Or was something hidden inside the stone? The incident fuels a new wave of speculation. Perhaps the stones contain more than just inscribed words. Maybe there are cavities, hidden chambers, or even electronic devices embedded within the granite, and this was an attempt to retrieve or expose them. The mystery of the missing piece deepens when you consider another inscription on the ground-level tablet. Below the blank space for the time capsule dates, it reads, "Guidestone Sponsors, a small group of Americans who seek the age of reason." But the spelling is off. Sponsors is misspelled as Spencers. This detail, which could be a simple Mason's error, is seen by many as anything but. In the world of esoteric codes, nothing is accidental.
experts still argue whether this was a deliberate key, a signature error meant to be recognized by initiates, or simply a mundane mistake that has been blown out of proportion. The missing chunk of granite and the intentional-looking typo become two more pieces in a puzzle that seems to grow more complex with each passing year, inviting a new generation of digital detectives to try and crack the code. As the world transitions from analog whispers to digital screams, the Georgia Guidestone's mystery finds a new, more volatile home, the internet. The scattered collection of fringe newsletters, late-night radio shows, and local legends that once surrounded the monument now coalesce into a sprawling, interconnected web of online forums, YouTube deep dives, and social media threads. The digital age doesn't just amplify the old theories, it creates a new kind of investigator, the crowdsourcing sleuth. Armed with satellite imagery from Google Earth, historical document archives, and facial recognition software, a global army of armchair detectives sets out to do what decades of traditional investigation could not: unmask the elusive R.C. Christian. The hunt intensifies, and every clue is re-examined under a digital microscope. Remember Wyatt Martin, the bank president who was the sole keeper of Christian's true identity? He had fulfilled his promise, destroying the documents after the project's completion, taking the secret to his grave in 2013. But the digital sleuths don't give up. They scour property records, financial statements, and genealogical databases looking for anomalies, for any connection between Elbert County and individuals with the means and motive to fund such a project. This is where the story takes a sharp turn, becoming a real-life cat-and-mouse game played out across servers and continents. One prominent theory that gains traction online points to a surprising figure. Ted Turner, the media mogul, founder of CNN, was a vocal proponent of population control in the 1980s and 90s. His public statements about reducing the global population to 2 billion, while not as extreme as the Guidestone's 500 million, were close enough to raise suspicion. He had the wealth, the Georgia connections, and the globalist worldview. The theory is compelling but remains circumstantial, a tantalizing what-if that lacks a smoking gun. Another, more esoteric theory points to the involvement of L. Ron Hubbard and the Church of Scientology, citing supposed symbolic overlaps between the Guidestone's directives and certain Scientological texts. The digital ether buzzes with these possibilities, each one branching into 1,000 new comment threads. But the most significant breakthrough comes not from a famous name, but from a persistent filmmaker named Chris Pinto. In a 2015 documentary, he uncovers a box of documents from the granite company that had somehow survived. Within this box, he finds letters from R.C. Christian. The letters reveal a stunning detail. Christian's group had deep ties to a specific region in the American Midwest, particularly Fort Wayne, Indiana. The investigation suddenly has a geographical focus. Sleuths begin cross-referencing names from this area with known associations to eugenics movements and World Federalist organizations. The digital dragnet is closing in. It leads them to a man named Herbert H. Kirsten, a doctor from Fort Wayne, Indiana. Kirsten was a known admirer of Thomas Paine and a fervent advocate for population control. A strange, almost unbelievable detail emerges. An analysis of the letters from R.C. Christian reveals a writing style and use of certain phrases that are a near-perfect match for Kirsten's known public writings. Experts still argue whether this linguistic fingerprint is definitive proof or a remarkable coincidence. But for many online communities, the case is closed. They believe Herbert H. Kirsten was R.C. Christian. But just as the internet feels it has finally pulled the mask off the phantom, the real world intervenes with explosive force. In the pre-dawn hours of July 6, 2022, a surveillance camera captures a flash of light, followed by a thunderous boom that echoes across the sleeping county. An explosive device has been detonated, blowing one of the massive granite slabs to pieces. The final countdown has begun, not with a revelation, but with an act of destruction.
The explosion that shatters the pre-dawn stillness of Elbert County on July 6, 2022 is more than just an act of vandalism. It's the violent climax of a 40-year-old story. The English-Spanish slab, the very one that had a piece mysteriously chiseled from it years before, is now a jagged ruin. The blast is powerful enough to dislodge the massive capstone, knocking it askew and fracturing the central pillar. The astronomically aligned instrument is broken. The monument, designed to withstand apocalypse and guide future generations, could not withstand the fury of the present one. A grainy surveillance video released by investigators shows a silver sedan pulling away from the site shortly after the explosion, but the perpetrator remains as shadowy and unidentified as R.C. Christian himself. What happens next is, for many, the most shocking part of the entire saga. Instead of cordoning off the site for a lengthy investigation, preserving the damaged stones as evidence, or perhaps attempting a restoration, the local authorities make a swift and stunning decision. Later that same day, citing public safety concerns over the stability of the remaining structure, a backhoe and crew are brought in. Under the watchful eyes of a few local residents and a global audience tuning in via live stream, the remaining monoliths are pulled down. The Georgia Guidestones, which took months of painstaking effort and incredible engineering to erect, are unceremoniously demolished in a matter of hours. The central pillar is toppled, the giant slabs are smashed into manageable pieces, and the rubble is hauled away to an undisclosed location. This rapid destruction becomes the final, most perplexing chapter of the mystery. Why the hurry? The official explanation of public safety rings hollow for many. Critics point out that countless damaged historical structures, from ancient ruins to modern monuments, are carefully stabilized and preserved, not bulldozed within hours. The decision fuels a firestorm of new conspiracy theories. Was the swift demolition an act of bureaucratic expediency, or was it a cover-up? This leads to the ultimate ironic twist. The authorities, in their attempt to eliminate a public hazard, ended up looking like they were scrubbing evidence. The debate now is not about who built the Guidestones, but who demolished them and why. Experts still argue whether the county's actions were a responsible, if clumsy, response to a dangerous situation, or a deliberate move to erase a controversial landmark and whatever secrets it might still hold. The memory of the time capsule, supposedly buried just 6 feet beneath the surface, hangs heavy in the air. In the rush to clear the site, was it dug up? Was it ever even there? The county officials remain tight-lipped, offering no comment on the capsule's existence or fate. The blank space on the now destroyed ground-level tablet remains eternally unfilled. The demolition didn't solve the mystery, it entombed it. By turning the physical monument into dust, the authorities inadvertently made its legend permanent and untouchable. The stones can no longer be measured, tested for hidden cavities, or analyzed. The missing piece of granite will never be returned to its rightful place. All that remains are photographs, memories, and the endless digital echoes of the 10 Commandments that once stood on a quiet Georgia hill. The enigma of R.C. Christian and his group is now sealed, not in a time capsule, but in the annals of unsolved American mysteries, larger and more potent in its absence than it ever was in its towering granite form. As the dust settles over that empty hill in Elbert County, the silence it leaves behind is somehow louder and more profound than the strange monument that once stood there. The questions, now untethered from their physical anchor, are free to drift and grow in the collective imagination, a testament to the enduring power of a well-crafted mystery. The story of the Georgia Guidestones serves as a stark reminder that sometimes the most compelling narratives are those without a final chapter, those that leave us to ponder the spaces between the known facts. They reflect our deepest anxieties about control, our fascination with hidden knowledge, and our endless search for meaning in a world that seems to operate just beyond the limits of our understanding. We may never know the full truth of R.C. Christian or the group he represented, but their legacy persists not in granite, but in the relentless curiosity they ignited. Thank you for joining me on this journey into one of modern America's most fascinating enigmas. There are countless other stories like this, waiting in the shadows to be told, and I look forward to exploring them with you in future videos. If you found this tale as captivating as I do, please consider liking the video, sharing it with someone who loves a good mystery, and subscribing to the channel so you don't miss what's next. Your support is what makes these deep dives possible.